Got to get it in. Does to Smith. Jabari for three and the win. Yeah! He got it!
We are here to Field Rockets News. This is Rockets Field podcast presented by Bet Online and sponsored by the Believe Network. And of course, I am your host, Lashard Binkley. And as you see, I am joined by a very special co-host, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. It's been a while.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Vader. You can find me on IG and X, the app formerly known as Twitter, at Vader Sports for your Rockets-related news, and then also a little bit of text and stuff.
And Vader, like I said, it's been a while. We've both been having a lot going on, but it's good to be back. And it's good to be back talking about an actual winning team. When we last talked, that was more towards the beginning of the season. And, I mean, most people thought that the Rockets were going to make the playoffs this year, maybe more play-in than the playoffs. But most people thought they'd be playing postseason basketball. But now we're here at the end of January, and the Rockets are 30-14 after knocking off Cleveland again. This time in Cleveland, 135-131. They're 30-14. They are second in the Western Conference, top 4 team in the entire NBA. So before we get into the game last night, since, like I said, we haven't talked in a while, let's talk a little bit about their season as a whole as we're past the midway point. We're getting close to the trade deadline and, of course, the All-Star game. So what's kind of just been your impression? Have you been are you shocked at where the Rockets are right now compared to where most people thought they were going to be when the season started?
Yeah, like the last time we hopped on the podcast, like you said, it's been a while. I accidentally got busy at work, and then I know you had a lot of stuff going on. You were so busy, you were doing podcasts from your car or whatever.
Yes, sir.
But and it's funny because at the time we were like, we're gonna try to do 2 podcasts a week.
Yeah.
And then we didn't end up doing it, but we back, man. It's good to be back. Good to be talking to you. And we did talk over text messages and stuff like that. We've been in touch. Yeah. It hasn't been like complete radio silence. But as far as the Rockets, man, this is nice. I mean, we went through a very tough rebuild. I mean, they were trying to lose games. Our coach was not that great. We saw some really bad basketball. We had some really bad basketball players on the team. We had dudes who we were, as a fan base, thinking that we were going to be building around who are, either out of the NBA entirely or like fringe NBA players at this point. So the Rockets have come a long way. And like you said, to start the season, people were like projecting that the Rockets would maybe scrap to be a play-in team. Nobody. I don't think you can talk to anybody who would have predicted that at this stage of the season, the Rockets would have the second best record in the Western Conference, which is crazy. And so I've just been kind of enjoying it. It's been a fun ride. It's been one filled with a lot of more ups than downs. And we haven't been able to say that. We probably in the past couple of seasons, it's been like you kind of go into the game thinking that you're going to lose, and you just hope that the guys on the team that you're hoping that they can build around in the future have good games. You go into the game and you're like, man, I hope Sengun plays good. I hope Jaylen plays good. Or, I hope Jabari might be able to have a breakout game this game or whatever, because you kind of knew, that there wasn't going to be a whole lot of winning going on. And last season, they flipped it a little bit. And then now this season, like, we're going out and we're beating quality opponents. I don't think there's another team in the NBA right now that is beating the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have the 2 best records in the NBA. And so your Houston Rockets, can lay claim to that, and they're the only ones that can do it. And it hasn't been like they've been giving us victories either. There was a lot of talk after that first Cavs win that, Darius Garland missed those free throws. They choked the game away. But, like, in actuality, the Rockets kind of choked that lead away. We had a huge lead, and then the Cavaliers went on that 19-0 run. And then you had Fred VanVleet kind of steadied the ship. He kind of did what we were saying we needed, like those veterans to do, teach these young guys how to win. And we had a few like missteps early in the season where I feel like we left some meat on the bone and gave some victories away. But that's all part of the process, and you've been a fan for a long time. You have to lose a little bit to learn how to win. You have to go through those pressure situations. You have to go through those tough moments. And that's when you kind of figure out what you are as a team, and it can either galvanize you as a team or it can break you. And I think right now we're seeing them kind of come together. And even though like we still kind of giving away leads, but that's kind of the nature of today's NBA with the way the 3-pointer is and stuff like that. So like, no, I've been very happy, very pleasantly surprised with where we are right now at this stage of the season.
I mean, yeah, like you said, nobody saw this coming. I mean, honestly, I can't even say I saw this coming. I thought they had a chance to be a top 6 seed, definitely to make the playoffs, but a top 2 seed, 44 games into the season. I mean, even the most optimistic Rockets fan that was really being objective didn't see this coming. I mean, and you kind of look at it again, the West is a lot tougher than the East. Um, Even though, yes, Cleveland has a great record, but you also have to think to yourself, well, they have that same record in the West, considering that you can lose 2 or 3 games in a row in the West, and you can go from the 2nd seed all the way down to the 6th or 7th seed at the drop of a hat. Because now you look at teams like the Lakers are starting to win. Somehow Dallas is continuing to win, even though they don't even have half their roster, including Luka. Memphis is right behind the Rockets. So all these games the Rockets have been winning against, especially the teams in the Western Conference, definitely helps because they're going to need those tiebreakers at the end of the year. Division record doesn't matter as much as it used to, but the Rockets have only lost 1 game in the division the entire season. So they have been taking care of business against the top teams. Like you said, they're the only team to beat OKC and Cleveland so far this year. And now they've beaten Cleveland twice, and they've beaten them in 2 different ways. The first game, they did it on the defensive end. They only scored like 15 points in the fourth quarter. And then the rejuvenated offense, something that we hadn't seen for most of the first 2 or 3 months. The Rockets couldn't make a shot to save their life, but they were still winning. Now, since January 1st, they're a top 5 offensive team. They're number 2 in scoring, which I mean, if you look at the way the Rockets started the year, they couldn't make 3-pointers. They were one of the worst offensive teams. Now all of a sudden they're one of the best offensive teams. And I think that has something to do with a change in the lineup that started around right after January 1st that we're going to talk about with Thompson, more towards the end of the podcast on whether he should be starting going forward or not. But the way the offense has kind of just flipped the switch since Ahmed's came in is just kind of crazy. Thinking that the Rockets and Ime said last night, like, yeah, we won the game, but I hate giving up 47 points in the fourth quarter, but he was still happy with the 135 points that they scored. So it's just funny that the Rockets can win either way now. They can win on the offensive end or the defensive end.
And I love Thompson. I can't wait for us to have that conversation. But like, I think another correlation to the offense taking off, and this does have something to do with Thompson, in my opinion, as well, is just the resurgence of Jaylen Green. He started the season pretty hot, and then he had a really bad month, and then after that, he had those 2 stinkers right before this last game. But before that, I mean, he just won Western Conference Player of the Week. And one of the more popular things that has been said in the community over the last year or two is that this team is kind of a Jaylen Green leap away, right? A Jaylen Green, the Jaylen Green that we envisioned him to be when we drafted him. You pluck that guy into this team with the other guys that are on the team, and you have a team that is a serious threat. And I think we've seen that. We've seen that over the past month with him actually playing very good basketball. His box plus minus has been really well. His plus minus has been really solid. His shooting percentages have gone up. Like he really took off. And I think a lot of that had to do with Amen, but like we got to also give some props to Jaylen Green. Like he's the one making the shots, and when the offense took off, there was a kind of a Jaylen Green boost there, in my opinion. And then Thompson just does everything. Like he's a segment all on his own. But no, it's been good to see the offense take a step forward. I kind of feel like the defense has suffered a little bit, and I don't know if that's just fatigue. I don't know if they're really missing Jabari Smith Jr. because I know he did a lot of little things that probably a lot of us as fans kind of took for granted. And now we're seeing like we can't do some of the certain things that we were able to do when Jabari was on the floor, as far as like switching everything when he's playing like the small ball 5. Honestly, we can't even really go small effectively right now because we just don't have the personnel to do it. But we've been getting by because we got like this supercomputer 6'7" dude who can just go out there at any given moment and grab us 15 rebounds and defend 5 positions. And So it'll be good to get Jabari back in, and I know we'll talk about that probably a little bit more later. But like when Jabari comes back, it's going to be interesting to see how this lineup shuffles. I know that's another controversial little topic that's going on right now in the Rockets community. Who
Yeah.
goes to the bench?
And kind of just following up on Jalen, I know a lot of people like to say, well, of course he's having, a few good games. He always does that. He have a good stretch and then he'll be back to playing bad. But if people actually really put any type of research into it, they'll see he's really been playing like this since the end of November. I mean, he's been averaging over 22 points, shooting close to 39% from 3-point range for the last 2.5 months. So it really hadn't just been like, oh well, he won Western Conference Player of the Week. Of course, he's had one good stretch. He's been playing well for the last 20 or 25 games, really, if you kind of go back and look at his stats. So like with Jalen, it's been more than just a week long stretch where he's playing really good. Like I said, he's been playing well since November. So I just think this is a different type of Jalen Green. Every guy's going to have a bad couple games like he just did, but it's more about when he bounces back instead of having 6 or 7 bad games. He comes right back with a really good game like he did last night on the road, because that was another narrative where people were saying he can't beat good teams or he doesn't play well against elite teams. He's been showing that over and over again, that he's going to play well against elite teams or bad teams. It really doesn't matter at this point. He's going to play really good basketball. And it's also good to see him and Alperen playing good at the same time, because we've seen it a lot where Alperen to be playing really well, then Jalen's not playing well, or vice versa, or Jalen only playing well when Alperen goes down with injury. So it's just good to see them playing well together at the same time. And I think that's ultimately what's going to take the Rockets to that next step, is having both of them playing well together at the same time period, instead of kind of your turn, my turn type of thing.
Yeah, we've seen them like kind of trying to kill some of those narratives. Like last year, Jalen was like really good at home, and then he was terrible on the
Yeah.
road. And then this season, it was kind of reversed. It was like for some reason he was not playing that well at home earlier this season, but he was playing pretty well on the road. I saw like the splits, and so I just kind of like I felt like it was just a matter of time for him to put it both together. And it's been a long process with JG. Like I've been a
Yeah.
JG supporter, and it's been rough, man, because there are moments where he looks like he could be a top 15 type-ish player in the NBA. His highs are so high. Like when he has it going, like there aren't very many guys in the NBA who can just go out and effortlessly score 20 plus points in a quarter like he's able to do. But then he kind of gets in these funks, and he gets in his own head, and it's almost like he gets really passive, and it's hard for him to break out of those. So the key with Jalen moving forward, I mean, like you said, everybody's going to have bad games. That's just the nature of being human. Everybody's going to have bad games, but he has to minimize those lows. The highs are super high, like I said, but he has to minimize. Like he can't have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bad games in a row. 2 bad games in a row. Okay, that's understandable, but
Yeah.
he has to kind of cut those out, and I think he's been doing that in this stretch. And then as far as him and Sengun being able to play together, I kind of see like Ime has put the ball in Jalen's hands a lot more recently, and also
Yeah.
in Amen's hands a lot more recently. I don't know if that was mandated, by the front office or the coach, the coaching staff or whatever.
Yeah.
But you could see Fred kind of taking a step back, and I think the team has been a lot better for it. You've seen the scoring go up. You've seen like the effort go up from a lot of these guys. The box scores have gone up. And I think a lot of that has to do with Fred kind of taking that step back and being an off-ball player. And let's be honest, like, who would you rather have off the ball for a catch and shoot three? Would you rather have a man off the ball for a catch and shoot three, or would you rather have Fred spotting up for a catch and shoot three? I mean, some of this just always kind of made sense. And I know,
Yeah.
there are limitations to Jalen's and a man's handle that Fred doesn't have. Fred, that's one of the things that Fred is actually good with. He's good with ball security, and he's good with like not getting his pocket picked. And he's steady, but he also doesn't really do anything spectacular like with the ball in his hands. Everything, the pick and roll that he runs with Sengun, everything is pretty basic. There's not a lot of skip passes. There's not a lot of like him breaking down the defense and getting into the paint. And you get a lot more of those things when Jalen has the ball. You get a lot more of those things when a man has the ball. And then you got like a guy who's out there who can knock down, a 3-pointer at a decent clip on a catch and shoot. So, yeah, man, like I like the fact that we've seen a lot more of those good Jaylen games and good Sengun games simultaneously. They're definitely trending in the right direction.
Yeah, and I won't get too much into it because that's a whole other podcast we can be talking about with Fred, and I guess that's probably why we need to try to get to doing more podcasts. But I mean, there's a reason why MA plays Fred so much, and I know people hate to hear it, but the Rockets do not function the same when Fred is not on the court. I mean, it's just a fact. They don't have, like you were saying, Jaylen and Amen in spurts are great as far as being the primary ball handler, but we've seen it already a few times this year. When Fred is not on the court and not running the offense just doesn't look the same because they're not getting in the right spots. A lot of times when teams start to increase their ball pressure, that's when Jaylen and Amen have a hard time getting into their offense. So you need Fred out on the court to get the Rockets in the offense. Right now, the Rockets really don't have a backup point guard. I know they tried with Reed. That doesn't necessarily work out. Aaron is not really a backup point guard. So they really don't have a true backup point guard like a TJ McConnell or somebody who can come in and just run the offense from the bench. So you need Fred. That's why Fred plays so many minutes. That's why Fred can be bad for 3 quarters. And whether you want to hear it or not, he's never going to bench Fred VanVleet. That's just not going to happen. So you pretty much at this point might as well get used to it that Fred's going to be playing 35 plus minutes a game because MA just trusts him. MA is that type of coach where if he trusts you, he's going to play you regardless of how you're playing. And you're starting to see that with Amen. Like, when was the last time that he benched Amen and didn't play him in the fourth quarter? Even if Amen was struggling, which he rarely does these days, but even when he wasn't playing as well, because he's starting to trust Amen. He knows that Amen does so many different things on the court that he can't put him on the bench in the fourth quarter, even if he's playing bad. I mean, I've seen him do that with Dylan. He's actually been doing that a lot less with Jaylen this year and even with Alperen because he's starting to trust the players a lot more than he did in his first year, especially the younger guys. So all that to say is that you need Fred on the court if you're the Rockets. And also Fred, like you said, him playing off ball is actually a lot better because ever since the first start of the year, he's shooting over 40% from three-point range. I know he was struggling really bad to start the year, like pretty much all the Rockets were from the outside, but he's starting to hit that outside shot. And that's why his assist numbers, he's only at like a 6 assists a game after having a career high last year, because like you said, he's playing a lot more off ball this year, which that's what they want him to do because they want to take that pressure off him being the only primary ball handler. So it just makes sense for Jaylen to handle the ball more, but not just all the time. They really don't have a player they need to have the ball in the hands every single time down the court, like a la James Harden. They just don't have that type of player. So it just makes sense to kind of spread it around. And we're starting to see a lot more of that as their offense has gotten a lot better. Another topic I want to talk about, because we're going to talk a little bit about the trade deadline. We're going to talk a little bit about who should be an all-star on the Rockets. And like I said, we're going to finish up the show talking about Thompson and whether he should be starting or not. But as far as the trade deadline, I wanted to ask you, at this point, you're 30-14. Of course, you can always get better if the right trade is out there. But do you really see the Rockets making a major move right now, considering that next year during the offseason, the possibility they'll have more cap flexibility? And also, you might see players like, for instance, Phoenix may end up just blowing it up at the end of the year, or you might have other teams that have more established stars and don't actually, make it out of the first round, don't make the playoffs. They'll be more willing to make a trade during the offseason. Do you see the Rockets making any major trades right now, or at the very least making some like type of minor deal to kind of, add some depth, maybe in the backcourt? Or I don't really see as far as the center position, because Steven Adams is really starting to play exactly like they wanted him to when they made that trade. But do you see them making any type of move around the trade deadline?
If you would have asked me that a few weeks ago, we probably would have had. I
Yeah.
probably would have had a different answer for you. I'm gonna be honest with you, because I was really high on like them trying to get Cam Johnson. Like I really felt like he was with the team struggling with the shooting and him being pretty much a knockdown 3-point shooter. He's solid defensively. Like he would fit perfectly here. Jabari was out. Yeah, I was kind of on the Cam Johnson, like see what you can kind of trade back to Brooklyn to get him here. I've cooled on that a little bit. Kind of depending on asking price. what they want to get him here. I would still like that. I think he fits perfectly here, but depending on what you have to give up, maybe it's not. I mean, you have a really great record. You're the second seed in the West. You got all these dudes who are like super young. Jaylen Green's 22, Alperen Sengun's 22, Aman's 21. Cam Whitmore is like 20, Jabari's like 20. So we haven't even like scratched the surface on like what Reed Shepherd can do, and I know that's another that's a whole other topic. Some people have lost faith in Reed. Like I'm kind of on the fence. I think I was watching like Rob Dillingham recently, and I know like even in summer league, like Reed looked like a better player than Rob Dillingham, and I was a guy who wanted Rob. I had some guys talk me out of Rob because they were like he's not good defensively, and he just kind of what the mix you would have bringing him here and pairing him with a guy like Jaylen Green or whatever. It's probably better to bring a guy like Reed in. And so I kind of went down that road or whatever, but I haven't completely given up on Reed. I mean, as soon as we sent him down to the G League, he dropped 50 points basically. So it's a shooter just doesn't learn how to shoot. I think a lot with him is just kind of confidence, him coming up here and not being as passive as he's been, hunting his shot a little bit more, being more aggressive. Kind of figuring out what his limitations are, his actual true limitations. Like being on a team like this where they're actually playing for something, he hasn't been afforded the same opportunity that Jaylen Green was afforded, that Alperen Sengun was afforded, that Jabari Smith, who was, all intents and purposes, was a horrible rookie. He was probably one of the worst players in the NBA as a rookie. And now we see, these guys got that playing time. They were able to iron out those kinks in their game, and now they're like contributing to a really good team, a really good playoff team, right? And so Reed hasn't been afforded that, and so like I can't really like throw him away yet. And I kind of feel like yes, the Rockets would be, as you just alluded to, ironically right before this, we don't really have a backup point guard. Like whatever Aaron Holiday gave us last year, he ain't really giving us this year. I feel like he even has lost a lot of his rotational minutes to Jayshawn Tate lately, which I did not foresee because Jayshawn Tate was like completely out of rotation. So yeah, bringing in like a backup point guard would actually do this team wonders. But then you run into that situation, and now you're blocking Reed again, who there's still an opportunity for Reed on this team if he can actually like show it in practice, and then when he get in the game, not be so passive. There's an opportunity. And does Raphael Stone really want to go out and get a guy who will effectively end in Reed's rookie season with the Rockets? Like he definitely won't play anymore, right? He won't play no more if we get a backup point guard. That's just kind of it for Reed's season. He'll be kind of like coming in, like Bronny minutes, the nastiest minutes the past few years. I'm kind of not in favor of doing that. And then as far as like bringing in, like I said, the Cam Johnsons of the world, I remember when Jaylen was struggling, there was a lot of Zach LaVine talk. And the assets that you have to probably give up to get these guys. I know people keep saying, oh, you could probably get Zach LaVine for nothing. I kind of don't believe that.
No.
I feel like if you could get him for nothing, he would have been traded already. I know there was some talk in the media, and a lot of people say things, they think they hear things, but you don't know exactly what these GMs are asking for these players, right? And so like if you got to give up any kind of assets to bring a guy like that in, who's now also like, how do you bring Zach LaVine off the bench?
Yeah, that's not going to work.
Are you going to bench Jaylen? You can't really bench Jaylen at this point, right? And so I think a lot of trades that we talked about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, a month and a half ago, kind of don't make sense anymore. The more recent one that was brought up was the Rob Williams. And like you said, Steven Adams has been like actually hooping recently. But Rob Williams does add a different layer to the team that we don't have as far as like what you would get out of a big at that position. And so, like, I wouldn't mind if you could get him for like Jock Landale and a second round pick or something like that. Because now you can do something on the with the roster flexibility that you really haven't been able to do, because he's just a completely different type of big than anything we have on this team. So that's kind of something like small that I feel like wouldn't shake things up too much. I would like something like that, but any major moves right now, I kind of feel like they should just kind of stick with the plan, play it out. Go to the playoffs, kind of see what we have, and then adjust from there. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think that's what Rafael wanted to do all along. I don't think he wanted to make a major trade, but if they were struggling, let's say hovering around 500 again, then I think he would have been not forced, but he would have felt more like he had to do something because they were just treading water. But the fact that they're 30 and 14, I mean, unless he's just some kind of just crazy deal, I just don't see him making any major trades because I don't see Phoenix necessarily trying to trade Devin Booker right now. I don't see, like you said, with Zach LaVine, does that really make sense? He's basically not saying he's a Jalen Green clone. He's probably a little bit of a better player because he's several years in the league, has several years in the league more than Jalen. But it's really no upside in bringing in Zach LaVine when you already have Jalen Green, who's on a better contract and who is younger and who's, having his best year of his career. So, like you said, it'd probably be more of a smaller trade. And even with Rob Williams, it's like with Steven Adams, he's doing so much now um, that the Rockets need as a backup center. I mean, it's not just the rebound; he's a really good passer. Something I don't think a lot of people talk enough about because when he's in the game, it's almost like he's playing point center at the top of the key. So he's bringing a lot more. Now he's also scoring. He's contesting shot stuff he wasn't even doing at the beginning of the year. So it's almost like, yeah, you could bring in Rob Williams, and I know that MA coach Rob Williams with Boston, but does it really make sense to bring him in as well? Because then you're taking away Steven Adams minutes, even though it'd be nice to have a Rob Williams that's maybe like your third center. But again, you would have to give up something of note to get a Rob Williams. And I think it would probably take even more than Jock Landale and a second round pick to get him, even though Rob Williams, another thing, he can't stay healthy. That's another
Hmm.
problem with Rob Williams. So it's like, do you really want to break up? Because I know team chemistry is kind of an overplayed thing that a lot of teams talk about, but the Rockets really do have really good team chemistry. I mean, and I'm not just saying that just to say that, but because every time the few times I'm able to see them outside of being on the court, I've never seen them have any issues. Now, of course, it may be something where they don't do it when the media's around, but usually you'll see some type of friction going
Hmm.
on between the team if there's something going on behind the scenes. But you just really don't see that with the Rockets. The Rockets have really good team chemistry, and do you really want to break that up to bring in some minor trade that may not even pay any dividends, and a smaller player that you're bringing over, even if it's not a major trade? So yeah, I just don't see the Rockets making any major trades because if you're Rafael, you might as well just let this play out. You're going to make the playoffs this year. You get to see exactly how they're going to perform in the playoffs. And if you flame out in the first round and somebody like, let's say Jalen has a horrible first round series, then you could be like, okay, he's going into and another thing to factor in is you try to trade for a big time player right now, you don't have a lot of salaries that match. So you're going to have to give up Dylan Brooks at the very least. And then you got to throw in some other players just to make the salaries even match because Jaylen Green's contract hasn't kicked in. Alperen Sengun contract hasn't kicked in. So you're going to, next year, when their salaries start to kick in, then you have a lot more flexibility on who you could trade, who you can't trade, and you can match up salary a lot better. So I just don't think the Rockets are going to be trying to make any moves right now because, like you said, they're second in the Western Conference and they have a lot of young players that they haven't even seen what they can do in the playoffs yet. So they'll probably wait it out. Um, like I said, at the very least, they'll probably make some trade for maybe a player on the back end of the roster, but they might not even do that. It may be more like trading draft picks or something like that because I know Rafael likes to trade draft picks. He likes to get those second round draft
Yeah,
picks
that's what I
from.
was kind of thinking too. It
Yeah,
might be something like that. That kind of like for us, we're like, what was this trade for? But then somebody will come out and be like, well, they flipped this for this pick because this pick is
yeah,
more value. Like those kind of things that
yeah.
that happen on those fringe moves. And good GMs do make those moves. So I'm hoping that he is like exploring those type of options too. But like you said, like there's no rush to do anything crazy right now. Like you're winning with a very very young roster that you
Yeah.
drafted. Like he drafted all of these guys with the exception of Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet, and he handpicked those two guys to come in and kind of stabilize what was going on here and be like that veteran presence, that veteran leadership in the locker room, kind of show these guys the way. add some grit, add some feistiness to this team. Because one thing Ime doesn't want is for this team to be soft, and I think that's been reflected the last 2 years. All the little scraps and tussles they've gotten into. You kind of see Ime and Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet's imprint on that. We've seen, like, I didn't know Fred was as crazy as he was until he went off on those referees this year.
Yeah,
I knew
Fred.
Dylan Brooks. I knew Dylan Brooks was crazy.
Yeah,
I knew Ime was a little off after he told LeBron he was a soft boy and all that kind of stuff. But like, yeah, Fred kind of surprised me on that. And then I've been seeing, like, Fred. Yeah, Fred will go off on you. So like these guys, they kind of like follow suit. And we're a tough team. We're a hard nosed, gritty team, and that's why the Cleveland Cavaliers had so much beef with us last night when we were playing against them. You could kind of see I think they felt like we roughed them up a little bit at the
yeah.
Toyota Center,
They were
and they
trying to prove a
came.
point, and it still didn't matter. The Rockets still beat them at their own games, which is kind of what just makes it even more impressive.
Yeah, so it
But
was good to see. Like, they definitely came out with a little. They came out with a little smoke, as they say, for the Rockets that second game, and yeah, we responded. They punched us in the mouth. We punched them back, and then we ended up getting the dub. So yeah, this isn't the same Rockets team, and I think the people around the league are starting to notice. I think there's a lot of people, like, on social media and in the media, who kind of weren't like running the Rockets their respect, so to speak, kind of thinking that this was like a flash in the pan and they weren't going to be able to maintain this winning pace, as the season progressed. And, we just keep on winning, man. We keep beating teams like Cleveland and OKC and, all these Memphis, all these other teams that are like, supposed to be our rivals heading into the playoffs, and the Rockets are responding.
yeah, I mean, at this point, I mean, you're 44 games in. You pretty much are who you are at this point. It's not any more surprises. It's not, oh, hey, they had a good first 2 weeks of the season,
Hmm.
and now all of a sudden, they're starting to lose, and they're kind of coming
Yeah,
back to
so
the
why
pack.
break
I
it up?
mean, yeah,
Why
yeah, I
break
mean,
it up? You got all these young dudes, and really the only two guys who really play 30 plus minutes a game is Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet. And like you said, we've been getting some decent minutes from Steven Adams lately, who was also a good veteran pickup, because like he seems like
yeah,
a really great locker room guy. Like, I don't know for sure, but like, everything
yeah,
you see with him, he's funny. He's like he's always like propping the guys up. You see him on the
yeah,
bench. He don't have that bad body language that we don't need to. His body language on the bench is like excellent.
yeah.
Um,
I mean,
I don't know,
and
man.
real
Like, I
quick
feel
on,
like they got like you said, I think they got a nice little chemistry going on right now.
yeah, I mean, and real quick on what you said about Steven Adams. I mean, he's definitely the best interview on the entire team. I mean, literally, like, he breaks down every single little thing, which makes it, great, especially because you don't hear that a lot in interviews. A lot of times people just give kind of just standard, boilerplate interviews where it's the same thing over. He will literally break down, and actually I'm gonna play a clip from him later on when we're talking about Amen. He will literally break down exactly what he sees on the court and what he doesn't. And yeah, as far as a locker room guy, you can't get much better than a Steven Adams. And then also you factor in the fact that when he's on the court and there's something going down, you're not going to see anybody running up on Steven Adams or or trying to get in a fight with Steven Adams. So when you're talking about an enforcer, he's the type of enforcer that doesn't even really have to even enforce anything, because his reputation is so much where players don't even try to get into anything with him when he's on the court. So he's definitely a MA type of guy. One of the rare times you ever see MA smile, you just ask him about Steven Adams, and you'll actually see him smiling, because that's how much that him and Rafael. I don't know if you remember when they were talking about the trade last year during a press
I was just
conference,
about to
and
bring that up because
yeah,
we were just ironically talking about trades, and that was kind of a fringe trade that, like,
yeah.
it was like it didn't really do nothing for us at the time, but now you're starting to see the dividends from it. But yeah, go ahead and
Yeah.
finish that.
Yeah, no, yeah, just absolutely. When they were talking about him, it was like they almost had to hold themselves back, even though he wasn't even going to play the rest of the year. They knew exactly what they were getting in Steven Adams and why they won. And Jock Landale actually had a decent end of the last season where he actually played some good games, but
Hmm.
Steven Adams just brings a whole different element that it can't get from anybody else on the roster.
The
So
presence.
that's exactly the type of trade that is making a huge difference this season. And And not to go too far off in a tangent because we do need to get on the All-Star talk, but I mean, Rafael definitely should get a lot of the credit because when he first made that James Harden trade, the amount of comments that were saying he didn't know what he was doing, he's a horrible GM, bring back Daryl Morey. I mean, it was pretty bad there for a long time, and especially when they had those 3 years of having the worst record in franchise history. Rafael was taking a lot of heat. There was a lot of people that said he shouldn't even got an extension when he did get the extension. So the fact that the Rockets are where they are now, they're not in salary cap hell. They have a lot of really good young players. They're not like Phoenix where they have older players who are at the back end of their career and not performing like they should, and they don't have their draft picks. The Rockets have draft picks. The Rockets have really good young players, and now they're going to have some type of salary cap flexibility going forward. They can still make a huge trade if they want to. So a lot of the credit has to go to Rafael and also just Tillman for being patient because he didn't have to be patient. We know, like Tillman's like any other owner, they would like to make money, and you're not making money when you're losing every year. So you got to give it to the front office. They really do deserve some credit. Now, I don't think that they've really been talked about enough this season when he talking about the Rock's success.
Yeah, I didn't even when you put it that way, that was like perfect because when you brought Phoenix up, when you look at their roster, you're like, man, they have Kevin Durant and they have Bradley Beal and they have
Yeah,
Devin Booker, you know, and they're like a way worse team than us. And
yeah,
obviously, when you get in the playoffs and they have playoff experience or whatever, and they can probably make it difficult on anybody, but um, they're doing that with all these veteran guys, all these guys who've had multiple All-Star appearances. And we don't have a single All-Star on our team, and we may not have this year. Hopefully, we do. But
yeah,
yeah, that's a testament to like the way that this team was built out. It's a testament to the way Ime is coaching these guys because they just fit together. Um, when you look at them each individually, if you just look at their season statistics, like nothing really is eye popping as far as like, oh man, that guy's averaging 30 points per game, or this guy's
yeah,
averaging 25 and 11 or something like that. We got solid stats. Sengun is putting up some really solid numbers. JG's putting up really solid numbers. Amends as a starter is actually kind of insane, but like I was saying though, like they don't really have one guy who's doing it. I know what was that saying that they've been saying all year that just kind of like makes perfect sense now. Sometimes me,
yeah.
sometimes you, always
You
us, or
always
whatever it
us.
is.
Yeah.
Like that epitomizes everything that this Houston Rockets team is about right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of following up on the All Star talk, that's our next topic here. We're going to talk about real quickly because I definitely want to get into the Amen as a starter conversation as well. But of course, the starters were announced last week, and to no one's surprise, it was no Rockets that was voted in as a starter. But the coaches' decision coming up this Thursday, we'll see if any of the Rockets actually made the All-Star team. And a lot of talk has been as far as um, you have a top two team, you automatically, like last night I was actually watching NBA TV. I hadn't watched it in a while, but I watched the NBA TV and they were giving the Rockets a lot of praise. Dennis Scott and Sam Mitchell were saying, you're a number two team in the league. You have to have an all-star in the all-star game. That's just the way it is. That he was saying that Sam Mitchell in particular was saying that you need to reward wins more these days because now everybody's averaging over 20 points a game. So averaging over 20 points a game doesn't necessarily mean you should be an all-star. You should be on a winning team. That should definitely be rewarded. And the Rockets have the top two team record in the West and a top four record overall. They definitely should have an all-star. Should they have two all-stars? Possibly, but do I think they're going to have two all-stars? No way I think they're going to get two all-stars. It's just the Rockets just don't get enough national attention for that to happen. But then the question comes down to if they do get one all-star, who should that all-star be? And if I'm looking at it, to me, it has to be Sengun just because he's been doing it all season, even though his numbers are actually down in some categories from last season. But you factor in, like he's been saying the last couple of interviews he's done, they're sending 2 and 3 people at him every single game now. They were doing it some last season, but this season is every single game. Now they're double and triple teaming him, and he's still putting up close to 20 points. He's averaging a career high in rebounds, and it's his plays now are more impactful. I don't know if that makes sense. He's scoring less, but the plays he's making are more impactful towards winning this season. And not to say that Jaylen Green's had a great year. He's having the best year of his career. But I just think overall impact on the Rockets, I think Alperen Sengun should be the person that makes the All-Star team if only one of the guys is going to make the team. But I mean, when you're looking at it, who do you think? First off, do you think the Rockets are going to have an All-Star? Because it's possible they don't have anybody make the All-Star team, unfortunately. But if someone does make the All-Star team, who do you think it should be?
So that this is kind of scaring me. This is a hot button issue for me because I was talking to like Will and some other people, Brad, aside some other people the other day. We were trying to like go down the list of guys who might be ahead of our guys as far as making an
Yeah.
all-star team, just based on statistics alone, right? Not really based on like records or whatever. And there's a few guys like you said, like if you're just looking statistically, this guy might be an all-star over Alperen Sengun, um, for example. And so like we were just kind of so you have like a guy like Domantas Sabonis, great, having a great season. The Kings are having a resurgence. Like he's an
Yeah.
all-star player, right? You have Jaren Jackson Jr., who is on a Memphis Grizzly team who they almost pretty much have the same record we have. They're the third seed in the West. You have John Morant. You know what I mean? There's a I can just keep going down the list, but there's a lot of guys who like if you just look at it and if a coach, and this is what scares me, if a coach is picking this roster, I kind of feel afraid that they might select some of these guys over Alperen Sengun. I do think Alperen Sengun is the most deserving pick on our team because he's been the most steady, he's been the most consistent. He's his layups have been kind of trash this year. Don't get mad at me. I'm just stating the fact. Um, but even through all of that, like if I'm gonna just put it this way, if Alvin Sengun had made all his not all his layups, but had made his layups the way he had made them historically coming into this season, which was at a pretty high clip, I think he'd be a shoo-in for an All-Star, right? He'd probably be averaging 2 or 3 more points per game just from making his layups alone. But everything else about his game has matured so much. Like you said, he's getting double and triple teamed in the post a lot. He's kind of the engine that makes everything go. He's the straw that stirs the drink, so to speak. So, like, if I had to pick one player off of our team who deserved to be an All-Star, it would be Alperen Sengun. And I think that, like you were saying, like you have the second seed in the Western Conference right now, and at worst, you'll probably be the third seed going into the All-Star break. A team that has that record deserves to have an all-star, and I think the NBA would be doing themselves a disservice by not rewarding winning. You can put up stats easily on a losing team. We had that here for
Yeah.
years. We had Christian Wood. I'm gonna scare y'all. I'm gonna bring some names up.
C Wood.
We had
Wow. The
Christian.
wow era.
We had the WoW era. We had Christian Wood dropping 20 and 10. We had people saying Christian Wood was like as good as Anthony Davis because we were just looking at statistics. We were just looking at offensive statistics. We had
Yeah.
Kevin Porter Jr. averaging 19 points, like 6 assists and 5 rebounds. Like, what are we doing here, right? So you have to reward winning, and I think one of the key ingredients to our winning has been Alperen Sengun. I will say this though. Jaylen Green's recent run, I think it puts him in the conversation. And I think when you think of an All-Star game, it's a guards game. Rashard, you know
Yeah.
that. Rashard, you know that it's a guards game. Most of the things that happen in the All-Star game that are exciting to fans and exciting to us as the viewer happen because you got the point guards and you got the wing players and the shooting guards kind of like doing all this fun, fancy stuff. And a lot of times, big men get lost in the shuffle because it's just a big scrimmage. So I think the NBA has been kind of trying to push Jaylen Green for the longest. Like he's oftentimes been on like when we're being promoted for a game, he's on the flyer, he's on
Yeah.
the press release, he's on all of those things, right? So I think the NBA has kind of been wanting Jaylen Green to step up and be the face of the Houston Rockets, and I think this recent run kind of put him in that conversation. And if he wouldn't have had those 2 bad games right before this decent game that he just had against Cleveland, I think he would have been in more of the conversation to supplant Alperen Sengun. I think if Jaylen plays really solidly up until Thursday, I still think Sengun should get that nod over him. But I think the Rockets definitely deserve an All-Star, and I'm gonna be very disappointed if the coaches don't feel the same way.
Yeah, and as you see, I put up on the screen. Basically, I put this up to show that in the guard position, yeah, it'll be extremely hard for Jaylen to get in because, I mean, you're looking at names like even though Luca hadn't been playing, you're looking at all these different names of players that the coaches are probably going to put into the All Star game ahead of Jaylen Green. And a player like James Harden may not even make the All Star game this year, and he's having a really good season. Despite not having Kawhi Leonard for most of the year. And then you have players like John Moran, and you have Darren. I mean, it's so many guards in the Western Conference. It'll make it extremely difficult for Jaylen to get in the All Star game. Now with Sengun, we know they're gonna vote in Victor Wembanyama. I mean, I think that's pretty
Oh
much
man, they
100%
they
guarantee at
would
this
be
point.
idiots if they don't put Wimby in the game. Like if they
Yeah,
don't put Wimby in the game, just shut the game down.
yeah, they're gonna put him in the game. Like you said, you got Sabonis, and then you got players like, I mean, even because again, they're doing it all as a front court, so it's not really just center power forward. So then you got players even like Jalen Williams. I mean, that's another name that comes up, and then of course Anthony Davis. They're gonna put Anthony Davis in. Let's just be honest, just because of the whole LeBron James factor. He does, even though he may not directly tell the coaches to put him in, but they're going to put him in just because of the whole LA LeBron James thing. So that's when it kind of comes down to, okay, are they going to put more guards on the bench? Are they going to put more? So should Sengun make the All Star game? Absolutely. Will he make it? Honestly, I'm 50-50 because I just don't trust that the NBA and the other coaches pay enough attention to the Rockets. I mean, of course, they play the Rockets; they know how good the Rockets are. But like you said, the All Star game is also about flash, and it's about
And that's and when
highlights and stuff.
you say Flash Lashard, I got into like a disagreement with somebody. We were on playback last night, and he was like, I don't think John Moran is making the All Star team, and I said, you think they're not gonna put John Moran in the All Star game? Like he's
Yeah,
one of the more popular like players in the NBA, especially with the younger fan base. Like I don't know, man. Like I just don't see how they are not gonna like some of these guys, especially when with them looking for a new face of the NBA. You got to take that into consideration as well.
yeah,
How do you leave when you're trying to promote the product when Kevin Durant is gone, when LeBron James is gone, when Steph Curry is gone? You how do you leave like Anthony Edwards off and John Moran off and some of these other guys who you're trying to hype up as the next thing, right? So like I
yeah,
feel like some of these guys are going to be shoe-ins for the game, unfortunately, and so it's going to come down to like Shingun's gonna have to like really like I really have my fingers crossed, and I'm glad that he put up the performance he did last night against Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. He kind of had them both looking stupid. Um,
yeah,
that's supposed to be like one of the best front courts in the NBA, and he kind of dominated them. And I'm gonna say this too because there's a lot of like people in the fan base who always want to go back to the Jalen Green over Evan Mobley pick thing, and I get it. I get it. Trust me, I get it. Sometimes when I watch Evan Mobley playing other teams, he looks really good. But every time he plays the Rockets, I'm like,
he's just,
this guy
yeah,
ain't impressing me at all. It's like, yeah, he's
yeah.
tall and he plays good defense, and like he does stuff. But like, how many points did we score last night? Like his defense wasn't that like generational.
135, and they didn't want to put him on Sengun at all. They brought in Tristan Thompson instead of when Jerry Allen got in foul trouble. They brought in Tristan Thompson and went to zone instead of putting Evan Mobley on him because Mobley can't guard Sengun. There's just no
Yeah, and we
way. I
talking
mean,
about this dude like he's Wimby, or we talking about him like I don't even think he's good as good as Chet Holmgren in my opinion. And maybe I'm wrong, but like
no, he's not.
I,
No,
I don't know, man. He's a really good player. He's a guy who is gonna make multiple All-Star games, I believe, moving forward. So I'm not trying to say he's not a good player, but people really act like we passed on Wimby when they talk about Evan Mobley, and I just don't see it, man. That's just me.
no. So yeah, I mean, and actually, I'm gonna try to do it. See if we can do a show when they have the announcement that on Thursday because it'll be
Okay.
really interesting to see because this will kind of
And
determine
he got his
to
shot
me.
blocked by a 6'7" dude named Thompson. Let's talk about that.
And that's kind of a perfect segue into the next topic, our last topic of the day, and that's talking about Thompson. And as far as when Jabari Smith does come back, we don't know exactly when that's going to be. It's probably going to be another few weeks before we even hear about him, getting ready to come back. But when he does come back, that's going to make it a real interesting decision for MA. And I was thinking about asking him this now, but I already know he's not going to answer it. He's just going to say, "Well, we'll determine that when he comes back." So there's really no point in asking him now. But at some point, he's going to have to answer that question. That's the next topic I want to talk about. But before we get into that topic, I want to play a little bit of a clip from Steven Adams last night talking about Amenthompson Thompson and what he sees from him.
One of the greatest athletes that I've seen. Dude's just a freak of nature. He's just unbelievable, dude. Like, even if you ask a basketball player, like, you'll see his body language and he looks out of position. Yeah. So visually you're like, okay, he's not. And then somehow he, like, just springs, I don't know, it just looks weird. He's standing upright and then he's right there getting a block. You're like, wait, what the all right, dude. You know what I mean? Like, if that happens to me, I'm, like, late. They're getting a dunk. And then I'm getting on film, but he's able to, like, just...
And as you can see, and that's kind of been the reaction of everybody when they talk about Alperen Thompson, the fact that it doesn't even look like he's trying and he's able to go up like he had, like you said, the block against Mobley. Mobley tried to body him. And that's another thing people don't realize. Alperen Thompson is a lot stronger than people give him credit for. He tried to body him. It still didn't matter. Alperen Thompson was able to and easily go up and block a 7-footer shot in the paint. It's not like this was a weak side block, which most blocks are. This was a one-on-one against a 7-footer, was able to get the block. He had another one where he was coming from the weak side. He jumped so quick that the guy didn't even get off the ground before he blocked his shot. I mean, it's pretty amazing at this point that he's only in his second season. He's already one of the, if not, he's definitely a top 2 or 3 impactful player on the team already. And that's going to bring up the conversation because right now, Alperen Thompson is a double-double machine, and he does so many different things on the court. 1 minute he could be guarding Ja Morant, the next minute he's guarding Evan Mobley, and he's doing it, and it's not like it's a mismatch on either side of the ball. He can guard fast, smaller guards. He can guard bigger guards like Luka Doncic. So it brings up the question, when Jabari Smith does come back, number one, should Amen go back to the bench? And then number two, if he doesn't go back to the bench, between Dylan Brooks and Jabari Smith, who should go to the bench and who actually will go to the bench, because that's going to be 2 different things as far as that situation is concerned as well. So I'll ask you that first. Should Amen start for the rest of the season, no matter who comes back into the lineup?
You almost made me curse. Heck yeah. Heck yeah, he should start for the rest of the year, man. Like, in my opinion, he is part of, like, if we had a big 3, he's part of the big 3. Yeah. Like, if you were to consider as far as like franchise building blocks, hopefully on this team, like, he's one of them. It's Sengun, it's Amen, and it's hopefully Jaylen Green can sustain this for the remainder of the season. And like you said, and going back to the Jaylen thing, like, people bring up, oh, we've seen Jaylen get hot before. We haven't seen Jaylen get hot like this before All-Star break. Let's be honest. Like, he's had some spurts. He hadn't had any like sustained, consistent play prior to the All-Star break at this level. No, like, after the All-Star break, he's been historically like really good after the All-Star break, and that's why people came into the season and we need to see this for a whole season. So hopefully he can put that second half together with this first half, and then now we cooking. But I feel like he's part of the big 3. If the Rockets have anything close to a big 3, he's part of it. And if he's not number 1, he's number 2 in that group. Y'all can rank them how you want to rank them. I'm kind of like, from what I'm seeing, Amen might end up being the best player on this team. And I don't know how many people felt like that when we drafted him. But like, you seeing this dude go out last night and drop a crazy triple-double. He's consistently dropping double-doubles. He cannot shoot. Do y'all understand? He cannot shoot. He cannot really dribble with the basketball, like, not the way that you would want him to be able to dribble. These are like 2 of the primary like skills that a basketball player needs to have, and he needs to improve dramatically in both areas. And he is out there dominating basketball games in the way that I can't think of another player off the top of my head.
Grown men, by the way, he's dominating.
I'm sure there's somebody we can think of, but like, how do you dominate a basketball game on both ends of the floor when you can't dribble and you cannot shoot? that's how crazy this dude is. And so like his upside is just like the sky's the limit for him, like honestly. And we've seen him improve. Like let me also say his handle is way better than it was last year. He does struggle like change of direction and some other things that I would like him to improve on going left. His shooting has improved dramatically since last year, and this is what also gives me confidence to say that I think he's gonna be really special. He's already special, but like that deceleration that he has shown in the lane to like after he penetrates to kind of slow down and then hit a floater, like I don't know where that came from, but that like every time he does that, I like go crazy because like that's an unstoppable move. Like nobody's gonna be able to stop him if he's able to like get in the lane and just kind of shoot that whenever he wants to shoot it. And then basically like what you were saying as far as him starting, yes, I think he deserves to start because like the team is just better when he's on the floor. I think almost most advanced statistics will that you can point to show that Thompson is one of the people on the team who kind of make the team better. And I think
Yeah.
Ime is. I'm not saying he's finally starting to see that, but I think he is quickly becoming one of Ime's favorite players on the team. If you know what I mean. Like you were saying earlier how he ain't gonna never bench Fred because Fred provides him some form of stability that Ime kind of like needs. He kind of like what's that word? He needs that, and it's something that when I put Fred in, I know this is what I'm getting, and I think
Yeah.
Amen also does that. Like Amen, like if I was the coach, Amen would have to ask me to come out the game. I don't know if I would ever take him out. He'd have to be like hunched over and tired, like because like
Yeah.
many little things. He's when you even the other game, like he had like 16 points and 15 rebounds, and I'm just saying this off the top of my head. I don't know what it was, but then he had like four assists and four, multiple blocks, multiple steals. Like he literally stacks, the stat sheet every time he goes out there. So yes, I think he should start. Now the question on like will he start? If you would have asked me a little while ago, I would have been like, nah, Ime's gonna be he's gonna do that old coaches thing where you don't take a guy's starting position away because of injury. But I don't see how you bench him now. I just don't. I
Okay.
just don't see how you bench him now. But now the tough part is um, it has to be either Jabari Smith Jr. or Dylan Brooks. And then Dylan Brooks was playing pretty good earlier in the season, but I'm kind of leaning, so I kind of thought maybe it's Jabari. But in this recent stretch, we've kind of seen some of the things that we're missing with Jabari as far as like weak side help. Rebounding has suffered a lot. I feel like without Jabari being out there because he does box out. So even when he doesn't get the rebound himself, other guys are getting the rebound. Which ability? There's just a lot of little things that Jabari does that I think we kind of took for granted, and I kind of appreciate more now that he hasn't been playing. And then Dylan Brooks has kind of been like up and down. He's kind of been a head case a little bit. I don't think his defense is as good as it was. Um, I don't know, but I don't know, man. This it's tough for me. If I had to pick, I'm going to I'm gonna bench Dylan Brooks, man. And but I don't think Ime feels the same way. But that's what I would do. I'd bench Dylan Brooks.
Yeah. I mean, Ahmed can't go back to the bench. It's no way. You do whatever you got to figure out. Petition the NBA to have 6 players on the court. Whatever you got to do. But I mean, it's no way you can send them back to the bench. It wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. So again, it comes down to then who goes to the bench. If you're thinking logically, or I won't even say logically, because then they'll make it sound like MA doesn't think logically. if you're just looking at it from afar and you're just looking at the numbers, you would probably say Dylan should go to the bench. But we all know that's not how it works in the NBA. We know how head coaches are, especially like MA, who's an old school type of coach. A lot of times they value veterans more than the younger guys. Even if the younger guys are playing better, they just trust the veterans more because they've been there, done that. So ultimately, then they look at it as also, okay, we've seen Ahmed play with Dylan and we had success. So more than likely, what's going to happen is Jabbar is going to be the one to come off the bench, and they're going to be using him more also as a backup 5, a lot more than they have been in the past, just because he can play that dual role, just to kind of supplement him not starting. Now, do I think that Jabari should be coming off the bench? Probably not. because he provides something that nobody else on the team, like you said, provides, which is, somebody that gets switched, somebody can play the backup five, that somebody can also is one of their better mid-range shooters, which the Rockets don't have a lot of mid-range shooters on their team. He can get his mid-range shot off against anybody. He's gotten a lot better at that this season. But if I'm thinking about what's actually going to happen, I just don't see any way that he benches Dillon Brooks, because he values what Dillon Brooks brings, and that's the veteran leadership. And that's even though his defense has slipped a little bit, he's still one of the better defenders on the team. He values all those type of things. So to me, he still is going to have Dillon in that starting lineup.
And he's a presence. I mean, he's a presence. Starting the game, he's a guy that's going to come out, and his engine is going to be running hot most of the time, and kind of like setting
reputation.
the tone.
Exactly.
So I don't know,
his
man.
reputation has something
like
to
you
do
said,
with it as
this
well.
is the lineup that they're going with right now. Is kind of easy for. Okay, Jabari's back. We just gonna ease you into the lineup. We're gonna bring you off the bench at first, and so like you can get away with that, initially. But
eventually,
still would like
he's
to
gonna have to
see.
figure it out.
Yeah, I still would like to see. I still want to see what that lineup looks like though, with just Sengun, Jabari, Amen, Jaylen, and Fred. I would love to see what that looks like. And I want to see some Reed minutes in the second half of the season. I do. I want to see some Reed minutes. I think they need to play. I think they need to play him and let him like get some experience. I don't think he's gonna learn too much just sitting on the bench and watching. I think he needs to get out there. So hopefully he responds.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something that you definitely would like to see, because you never know what injuries and stuff like that's going to happen. But another reason why I think he's going to start dealing, he just likes having two perimeter defenders on the court at a time. And as much as Jabari has improved on the defensive end, he's still not really a great perimeter defender, because MA likes to switch a lot when he's out on the court. Even now with Sengun, because Sengun has gotten a lot better as a switch defender. He has Sengun switching out sometimes onto the smaller guards, not a lot, but occasionally. So I think that's going to play a factor in it. I think he leans more on Jabari is probably he is a better offensive player than Dillon, but Dillon is still a better overall, better defensive player. And I think that's ultimately why he's going to have Dillon in that starting lineup. But let me play like this. If he bitches, oh man, I'll just hate to be in that comment section after that game, because it's gonna be definitely it's not gonna be pretty.
I think Amanda has shown that he's a top 3 player on this team. So I don't know. I mean, I know he can still get minutes coming off the bench, and he plays multiple positions, but it's like he's so, like, when you look at his numbers as a starter, they're eye popping. And so like I don't want to see bench a man no more, because I've seen what starter a man can do.
Yeah, like I said, I think at this point, even if they're being having to be pulled kicking and screaming, I think MA and the coaching staff see that as well. Like, okay, we're gonna have to, and they probably already made a decision. They're just, of course, not going to tell anybody. I think they already know exactly what they're going to do when Jabari comes back, and I think that you're just at this point, they're trying to wait till that happens, and they don't even want to talk about it right now. But I think they know exactly what they're going to do, and it's going to have Ahmed in the starting lineup, either that small forward, power forward, really doesn't matter. But one way or another, he's still going to be in that starting lineup.
And one other thing though, Lashard, that people were saying earlier in the season about like not bringing a man to the starting lineup. They didn't want to break him and Tari up. You remember that? The Terror Twins, they didn't want to break the Terror Twins up. And so I was like, okay. Yeah, him and Tari do like wreak a lot of havoc when they was coming in the game together. It was a fun little experiment at the time, and we all got to see the Terror Twins wreaking havoc defensively and changing the tone of the game. And there were games where we started off real sluggish, and you inserted Amen and Tari in, and the game flipped. But now we see how good Amen is, man. Like Amen is like he don't need to be paired with Tari to be successful. And so
he already severed those ties. It's Amen, and then it's other people at this point. I mean, the talent is just insane. So we'll see how all that plays out. But for now, the Rockets are second in the West. They take on Boston on Monday, a team that pretty much, let's just be honest, they dominated the Rockets here in Houston. So the Rockets will definitely be trying to get some payback on Monday. Before I, wrap up the show, definitely want to say thank you. We're going to definitely try to do this more. I appreciate you jumping back on the show, Vader.
No, it was fun, man. It was good to like be back, and like you said, hopefully we can do more in the future and be consistent, man. Hey, you got jobs and responsibilities,
Yes, sir.
but
Yeah,
no, we
actual
got a
stuff
good team
outside
now,
of
so
this.
we gotta lock back in. We're gonna lock back
Yeah.
in.
Absolutely. And we appreciate all the support. We over 3,600 subscribers who want to continue to grow. And as you see, we do everything on this channel, not just, pre or post game, not just podcasts, not just highlights. We kind of do everything. So we definitely want to be your go-to source for all Rockets news. So definitely we appreciate your support. Make sure you're liking the video. As you see, it's a little bit longer than normal because usually when I'm in my car, it's only a 10 to 15 minute video. So we actually did a actual real podcast today. So definitely make sure you give us a like, subscribe to the channel. As usual, we appreciate all our support, and make sure you check out the next episode of Rocket Fuel Podcast. All right.